The dining room lights glared down on the long oak table, turning the polished surface into a stage where every movement, every glance was amplified. Plates clattered, laughter echoed from one end, but the moment my father's voice rose, everything else stopped. "Madison!" Charles Cole snapped, his fork stabbing toward the roasted chicken in the center. "You're just a failure. Let Ethan eat first. At least he's worth something." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The words cracked through the air like a whip. I froze, my hands tightening around the edge of my plate. My younger brother Ethan smirked, already pulling the dish toward himself. His eyes, a perfect mirror of our father's, gleamed with triumph as though he had won a battle he never even fought. "Don't take it so hard, Maddie," Ethan muttered, his voice dripping with mock sympathy. "You can't expect the world to feed you when you've got nothing to offer." Laughter rippled around the table. My cousins leaned in, whispering, while my mother, Diane, simply lowered her gaze to her wine glass. Not a word of protest, not a flicker of defense. My chest tightened. I could feel heat crawling up my neck, flooding my face, but I refused to let them see me break. "Why would you say that in front of everyone?" My voice wavered, but I forced the words out, each one scraping against the lump in my throat. Charles leaned back in his chair, his expression hard as stone. "Because it's the truth. You're 25 years old and still chasing childish dreams. Jobs you quit, ideas you abandon. What has it ever gotten you? Nothing but shame." The sting was sharper because deep down I'd always longed for his approval. Always wanted him to see me as more than a disappointment. But tonight, under the harsh dining room lights, I realized something. I could never win. My hand trembled as I set my fork down. The scrape of metal against porcelain echoed louder than my pounding heartbeat. "I'm not hungry," I whispered, rising from the table. Chairs shifted. A few cousins exchanged wide-eyed looks. Ethan chuckled, stuffing his mouth with mashed potatoes like victory had never tasted sweeter. I turned and walked away. My steps were steady, but the moment I reached the staircase, my vision blurred. My room upstairs became my refuge, the walls swallowing the sound of my ragged breaths. I sat on the floor, hugging my knees, the words replaying like poison: failure, worthless, shame. But beneath the sting of humiliation, another feeling began to burn, slow at first, then hotter with each passing second. Anger. I didn't sleep that night. My mind wouldn't let me. Instead, I sat by the window, watching the hours crawl by, my father's voice still ringing in my ears. Then, just after dawn, I heard it. 3 sharp knocks at the front door. The sound jolted me upright. Who would come at this hour? Curiosity dragged me downstairs. Through the window, I saw a sleek black car parked in the driveway, the kind of vehicle that didn't belong in our quiet suburban neighborhood. A man in a dark suit stood at the door, his posture firm, his presence commanding. When Charles opened the door, his voice faltered for the first time in years. "Dad?" And then I saw him, Walter Cole, my grandfather. The man our family rarely spoke about, except in hushed tones of envy and resentment. A billionaire whose empire stretched across industries. A man whose name carried weight in boardrooms and headlines alike. Yet here he was, stepping out of the car, his silver hair gleaming under the morning sun, his eyes sharp as ever. Every head turned, every conversation died. Even Ethan, still holding a fork from breakfast, froze mid-bite. Walter's gaze swept the room until it landed on me, standing at the base of the stairs in my wrinkled sweatshirt. "Madison," he said, his voice strong, steady. "I've been looking for you." The silence that followed was suffocating. Charles swallowed hard. "Dad, why are you here? You never—" Walter cut him off without even glancing his way. His hand lifted, beckoning me forward. "Come with me," he said. "We have much to talk about." And in that single moment, the ground shifted. The same family who had mocked me hours before now stared, wide-eyed and silent, as if their world had tilted upside down. For the first time, I wasn't the one shrinking under the weight of judgment. They were. The silence at the doorway could have shattered glass. My father stood frozen, his jaw tight, his hand still gripping the doorframe as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. "Dad," Charles stammered, his voice brittle. "You can't just show up here after all these years?" "Why now?" Walter Cole didn't even look at him. His eyes stayed locked on me, sharp but steady. "Because I've heard enough," he said. "And because last night told me everything I needed to know." Confusion rippled through the room. Ethan shifted uncomfortably, his smugness from dinner draining fast. My mother's fingers trembled against the tablecloth, her wine glass forgotten. Walter's words carried a weight no one dared challenge. "I came because I learned what happened at this table last night." His gaze swept the room, landing on each face before pinning Charles with a look so cold it froze the air. "You humiliated your daughter in front of this family. You belittled her for daring to live differently than you wanted. And you, Ethan," he turned, his voice a blade. "You sat there and enjoyed it." Ethan's smirk collapsed. I didn't—" Walter raised a hand, silencing him instantly. My father's face darkened. She's not cut out for success, Dad. Madison doesn't have the drive. She wastes her time, that's enough." Walter's tone was thunder. The entire room flinched. "You mistake your cruelty for guidance. You mistake humiliation for discipline. But what you've done is drive her further away. I built an empire not by crushing people, but by recognizing potential when no one else could see it." My heart pounded. I had never heard anyone shut my father down like that. Walter turned to me, his expression softening. "Madison, you've always had ideas. Maybe they didn't fit into the narrow box this house demanded, but that doesn't make you a failure. It makes you independent, and independence is worth more than blind obedience." I swallowed hard, my throat thick with emotions I couldn't name. For once, someone believed in me. Someone powerful enough to make the whole room listen. Charles slammed his palm on the table. "Don't feed her lies, Dad. She's not like Ethan. She doesn't have a future." "That's why you what?" Walter's voice cut like lightning. "Why you wrote her off. Why you crushed her every time she tried. Why you made her believe she had nothing." Charles's silence was louder than any admission. Ethan tried to speak again, his voice shaky. "Grandpa, you don't understand. Dad's just trying to keep the family strong. He wants what's best." Walter's eyes narrowed. "What's best?" "By tearing one child apart to build up another." "That's not strength, that's fear. Fear that Madison might surpass you. Fear that you can't control her." The words landed like a hammer. My father's fists clenched, his knuckles white. My mother, Diane, finally whispered, "Walter, please, this is family business." "No," Walter snapped. "This is about respect. And last night proved Madison has none in this house. That ends today." He turned fully to me then, his hand steady on my shoulder. "Pack a bag, Madison." "You're coming with me!" Gasps echoed like gunfire. "What?" Charles roared. "You can't just take her." Walter's stare was unflinching. "Watch me." Ethan shot to his feet, panic etched across his face. "This isn't fair. You never show up for years and now you waltz in and—" "Sit down," Walter ordered, his tone slicing the air. Ethan obeyed without another word. The room felt like it was vibrating, the air thick with shock, fear, and disbelief. My father's voice cracked with desperation. "Dad, don't do this. If you leave with her, you destroy this family's image. People will talk. They'll wonder why you chose her over us." Walter finally allowed himself a cold smile. "Good. Let them talk. Maybe then they'll finally see who deserves my legacy." I stood frozen, the reality of what was happening pressing down on me. This was the moment my life split into before and after. "Madison," Walter said firmly, looking me straight in the eye, "you are not a failure. You are the one I've been waiting for. And from this day forward, you will no longer live under their shadow." The words thundered through me, stronger than any insult my father had ever thrown. Charles's face twisted with rage. Diane's lips parted, but no sound came. Ethan sank back into his chair, pale and speechless. And in that silence, thick, heavy, suffocating, it became clear. The power in this family had shifted. For the first time, I wasn't the one on trial. They were. The slam of my suitcase hitting the hardwood echoed like a final verdict. I hadn't even bothered to fold my clothes. I just shoved them inside, my hands trembling with adrenaline. Every sound downstairs felt magnified, my father pacing like a caged animal, my mother's hushed pleas, Ethan's bitter muttering. When I descended the stairs with my bag, Walter was waiting by the door, his back straight, his presence towering. The black car outside purred quietly, ready to spirit me away. Charles's face was crimson, veins straining against his neck. "You can't do this," he growled. "She's my daughter. She belongs here." Walter didn't flinch. "She's my granddaughter. And if you had treated her as a daughter should be treated, I wouldn't be standing here now." I clutched the handle of my bag tighter, my pulse roaring in my ears. For years I'd dreamed of escape, but I never imagined it would come like this. Public, brutal, irreversible. "Madison." My mother finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Think about this. Don't make a decision you'll regret." I looked at her, really looked, and saw the years of silence, the way she'd always chosen comfort over courage. My lips trembled, but the words came out steady. "I already regret staying this long." The silence that followed was sharper than any scream. Ethan shot up from his chair, his voice cracking. "So that's it? You're just gonna run off with him? What do you think he's gonna give you? Money? A free ride? You don't deserve it." Walter's eyes narrowed, and when he spoke, his voice carried an authority that left no room for argument. "You'd be wise to hold your tongue, Ethan. You're about to learn that entitlement and arrogance build nothing. Madison, on the other hand, will learn what real opportunity looks like." Ethan's jaw dropped. His fists clenched at his sides, but he didn't move. My father tried one last desperate tactic, stepping closer, his tone lower, almost pleading. "Dad, please. You don't know what you're doing. She'll ruin everything. She's not cut out for—" Walter cut him off. "Enough. You ruined her spirit long before she ever had a chance to prove herself. And as for what I'm doing, believe me, Charles, I know exactly what I'm doing." The certainty in his tone sent chills down my spine. Walter opened the door and gestured for me. "Come, Madison." The morning light poured in, illuminating the stunned faces behind me. I hesitated for half a heartbeat, the weight of years pressing on my shoulders. Then I stepped forward, my bag rolling over the threshold. The air outside was crisp, a rush of freedom I had never tasted before. As the driver opened the car door, I slid inside. Walter joined me, his presence filling the space. The door shut, muting the chaos inside the house. My father's voice barked something unintelligible, but it was too late. The car was already gliding down the street, for the first time in years. I exhaled without fear, but the questions swarmed instantly. "Why now?" I asked, my voice small but sharp. "Why me? You've stayed away all these years. Why show up today?" Walter's gaze remained forward, his profile hard against the window's reflection. "Because I've been watching, and last night confirmed what I already knew. You are the only one with the strength to carry this family forward." I blinked. "What are you talking about?" His eyes shifted to mine, steady and unflinching. "I'm not here just to protect you, Madison. I'm here because I've chosen you. My estate, my companies, my legacy. It won't go to Charles, and it won't go to Ethan. It will go to you." My heart stopped. "What? You heard me," Walter said, his voice calm, matter-of-fact. "You are the heir." I saw the cruelty in that dining room, and it confirmed what I've known for years. Charles is consumed by bitterness, Ethan by arrogance. Neither has the heart or the vision to lead. But you— His eyes softened just slightly. "You have fire. You endured their abuse and still held your head high. That resilience is what empires are built on." My mouth went dry. "But I don't know anything about running an empire." "I don't—" "You'll learn," he interrupted. "I'll teach you, and when the time comes, they will have no choice but to answer to you." The word sank in like a thunderclap. My father's insults, Ethan's smirks, my mother's silence, it all flipped in an instant. They weren't just tormentors anymore. They were about to become subjects of the very power they had mocked me for lacking. The car sped down the highway, every mile pulling me further from the life I had known and closer to something I couldn't yet fathom. For the first time, I saw the future not as a wall closing in, but as a door swinging wide open, and behind me, I knew the silence in that dining room had only just begun. 2 days later, the ballroom of the Cole Grand Hotel pulsed with tension. Chandeliers blazed overhead, cameras flashed, and journalists leaned forward over their notebooks. The announcement had been teased for days, Walter Cole to reveal heir to empire, and now the world was watching. I stood just off stage, palms damp, heart hammering so hard I thought the microphones might pick it up. My reflection in the polished floor startled me. I looked nothing like the girl who'd been humiliated at that dinner table. My hair was neatly styled, my blouse and blazer crisp, my shoulders squared. Walter stepped to the podium, his voice carrying across the hall like rolling thunder. For decades, I've built these companies with a single question in mind. Who will protect them when I'm gone? He paused, letting the silence stretch. For years, people assumed it would be my son, Charles, or perhaps my grandson, Ethan. But leadership isn't inherited through entitlement. It's earned through character. In the front row, Charles shifted uncomfortably. Ethan's jaw was locked tight, his fists curled in his lap. Diane sat stiff, eyes darting from Walter to me, panic creeping in. Walter's voice deepened. Last week, I witnessed something that made my decision clear. I saw cruelty masquerading as authority. I saw arrogance mistaken for strength. And I saw courage, in the face of humiliation, that deserved far more than silence. He turned, extending his hand toward me. Madison Cole, my granddaughter, my heir. The room erupted. Gasps, murmurs, the clicking of cameras firing like gunshots. Reporters scrambled to capture my face as I stepped forward, my legs trembling but firm. Charles's voice rang out, desperate and sharp. Dad, you can't be serious. She's unprepared, unqualified. Walter didn't even look at him. No, Charles. She is everything you never were. And the fact that you can't see it is exactly why you will never sit in my chair. Ethan shot up, his voice cracking with fury. This is insane. She doesn't deserve a dime. She's done nothing while I've worked to carry this family's name. Walter's gaze cut through him like glass. You confuse effort with entitlement. You think carrying the family's name gives you a crown. But Madison carries something stronger. Resilience. The kind forged by every insult, every slight you laughed at while she endured. That is leadership. That is strength. The crowd murmured, nodding, the tide shifting in real time. I stepped to the microphone, my throat dry, but I forced myself to speak. For years, I was told I was a failure, that I'd never measure up. Last week, I believed it might be true. My voice trembled, then steadied. But standing here today, I realize failure isn't falling down. It's giving up. And I'm done giving up. The applause that followed was deafening, cameras flashing like lightning. Charles lunged forward, his face red, his voice breaking with rage. You're destroying this family, Dad. All for her? Walter turned slowly, his expression colder than I'd ever seen. No, Charles. You destroyed this family the day you chose cruelty over compassion. Madison is not the problem. She is the solution. Ethan tried again, but the words died on his tongue. The room no longer belonged to him, or my father. It belonged to me. I met their eyes one by one. My father's fury, Ethan's disbelief, my mother's regret. For years, I had shrunk beneath their shadows. Now they shrank beneath mine. I lifted my chin. I'm not running anymore. From this day forward, you'll have to live with the truth that the girl you called worthless now holds the power you wanted most. The room froze. For a heartbeat, all I could hear was the pounding of my own heart. Then, the applause roared again, filling every corner of the hall. Charles sat back, defeated. Ethan's face crumbled, pale and furious. My mother lowered her head, unable to meet my gaze. and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel invisible. I felt unstoppable. Walter placed a steady hand on my shoulder. "Welcome to your future, Madison. It's yours now." I looked out at the sea of faces, at the flashes, at the family who had broken me, and realized they could no longer touch me. Their silence, once my prison, had become my freedom.